Hey, fancy meeting you here. What's up, guys? This is a little odd because I just finished the NXT review already. And when I was done filming, I got a text from not just a good friend of mine, but one of the very few sources in pro wrestling that I actually invest fully into what they say. It's one of those people that when they tell me something, it just about always happens. It literally is the truth 99.99% of the time. So whenever I get word from this person, I know, like, wow, that's set in stone. And he just texted me saying that the Royal Rumble is set. They have all the names. It is set in stone. It's exactly what Vince McMahon wants. And it tells us that there's going to be no infusion of NXT superstars in this year's Men's Rumble anyway. There's 25 names already confirmed. And we were hearing the rumblings that Triple H was still trying to pull for NXT names to be in. At least 5 to 10 names so NXT has a presence. Judging by the text that I just received, it looks like Vince is not budging, and the 25 names are set in stone. We're hearing that at least 3 of the 5 remaining spots are going to be legit surprises, not of the NXT variety. So 3 legit names from the past. One of them is supposed to be a big name, like a John Cena or an Edge. The other 2, more of the mid-card nature and status. But if that is to be true, and that's the other 3 name surprises, then that's 28 spots. That only leaves 2 spots if they want to infuse NXT talent. So when you think of the whole NXT men's roster, only 2 spots would be available at that point. So I know we've known for a while now that NXT was slowly getting the boot from the Rumble, and as 15 names became 20 and 20 became 25, but we were all hearing that Triple H was trying to get things changed. Unfortunately, here we are early Thursday morning, just days away from the event, and it looks like these 25 names are set in stone. It looks like they already have at least 3 of the surprise names. That only leaves 2 spots for NXT. So it's kind of odd, because they infused them for Survivor Series. And here we are at the Rumble. That's a prime spot. I would have done like a 10, 10, and 10 type of a situation. Everybody utilized. Everybody looks like gold. And NXT is the legit third brand that you wanted it to be, right? That's what you said. It's no longer just developmental. It's a legit brand. But it's got no presence really at the Royal Rumble. Or at least not in that match. So that's rather alarming, but I can confirm that now, guys. Again, we heard that Triple H was trying to get things changed, so we didn't want to set the Royal Rumble match in stone yet, but now we can do such. And on the women's side, there's only 5 Rumble participants named. There's only 5 women named for the women's side, so who knows? The majority of the women's Royal Rumble match could be all NXT superstars, so maybe they'll make up for it there. But Alexa Bliss, Nikki Cross, Sarah Logan, Natalya, and Charlotte. Those are your 5 names. Oh, that sounds like a great women's Royal Rumble. Oh, man. You better have NXT female talent in there, let me tell you. Or that's going to be one lackluster Rumble match. So maybe the women will pick up the slack as far as the NXT side of things. But for the men, you got to look at this as a huge disappointment, because I would rather see a lot of those NXT talents in there than some of the names that I'm seeing that have already been announced for the Rumble men's match. There's some of those names that I don't want to spend 2 minutes on, watching them come down the aisle, fight for 2 minutes, go to the next dude that I don't want to see, come down 2 minutes later, and some of these names, it's just a waste of time. Let's make it fun. Let's get it energized. Let's get it amplified. Infuse some of that NXT talent. They had so much time to do such, so much time to change things even when they realized they made a wrong. But no, the stubborn old man in Stamford, Connecticut is keeping the 25 names that he has. There's said to be 3 surprises. We'll see if that lives up to the billing. And then that only leaves 2 spots. Who knows if Vince is going to give them to NXT talents? Those 2 spots could be other people on the main roster. So we don't even know if there's going to be any infused NXT talent. Maybe they're just putting all their chips into the NXT UK When Worlds Collide event Saturday night. I don't know. But either way, this is a huge disappointment for somebody like me that was looking forward to seeing some NXT talent in that Royal Rumble. But Vince McMahon is saying no. He's putting the kibosh to the NXT idea, at least for the men's side of things. For the women, they better have NXT female talent. They better. Because there's no way they're going to be able to hang on what they have right now, talent-wise. Especially if you're taking Asuka and Becky Lynch and Bayley and you're putting them in singles matches. At this point, they're going to have all of those women in the title matches. They're going to have to put them into the Rumble match. Because is there enough spots? I have no idea. All right, now let's get to the actual NXT review that I filmed about an hour ago. All right, so we kind of did some Back to the Future type thing. Or at least we went back. No, we're going back in time. I don't know what we're doing. I filmed a review. You're about to watch it now. What's up, guys? Good morning. Hopefully you guys rock out this Thursday as we lead into Royal Rumble weekend, which really kicks off WrestleMania season. No matter which promotion you're a big fan of, WrestleMania time, usually all promotions are holding big-time events. So this is really prime time for pro wrestling fans. And when you're talking NXT, there's no place better to be than right here on the Amplified channel, because this is your final destination for all things NXT during Royal Rumble weekend. Because NXT will not be holding a takeover this weekend, as they've done in years past. This is actually going to be an event featuring NXT and NXT UK talent in an event titled When Worlds Collide. That's going to be this Saturday night in Houston, Texas, same as the main roster, just in a different venue. It's going to be at the Toyota Center. It's going to be held Saturday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. There's 6 announced matches being featured on the event. Undisputed Era will be taking on Imperium. The NXT Women's Championship will be defended by champion Rhea Ripley when she takes on Toni Storm. Finn Balor is going to be taking on Dragunov. NXT Cruiserweight Championship will be on the line when champion Garza takes on Swerve, and 2 NXT UK talents to be named. So, mystery talents to be in this 4-way Cruiserweight Championship match. We're also going to see the reunion of DIY, Gargano and Ciampa, when they take on Mustache Mountain, Tyler and Trent. And then you're also going to have Mia Yim versus Kaylee Ray. This is scheduled as of now for the kickoff show. Mia Yim and Kaylee Ray. So, big card, especially if you follow NXT UK, and if you don't, you're going to learn a lot about them come Saturday night. So they're not going to hold a takeover event like in years past. However, this is going to be a big NXT event, and it's going to be on the eve of the Royal Rumble this Saturday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Houston, Texas, the Toyota Center. Last night was the go-home show, if you will, to such event, in a way. And it was a big one. But every single week, I feel like I'm saying NXT is bringing it. I mean, when you think the best wrestling in the world, you always thought of Japan, right? When you think of just sheer, pure wrestling. Today's style, anyway. You're thinking Japan. Because Japan is just a mixture of every style, and it's the epicenter of great wrestling. But I gotta say, as we are here in the middle of January 2020, I think I can finally say for me, and this is all subjective, it's all in the eye of the beholder, for me, the best wrestling in the world is in NXT. I mean, every single week, every event, they're bringing it as if there's no tomorrow. It's the end of the world. We just got to go out there right now and deliver the most epic performance possible. Who cares about tomorrow? We're bringing it all to the dance tonight. And that's what I used to see back when the Sasha Banks, Charlotte class, and I used to see that from Finn Balor, even if he was wrestling on an NXT weekly show on the network, it wasn't even on cable back then, or if he was at a takeover, you were still getting that consistency from dudes like Finn Balor. Sami Zayn. I know you guys just look at Sami Zayn as a jobber on the main roster, but in NXT, a lot of you guys didn't get to watch it because, again, it was on the network. It wasn't on cable. But Sami Zayn was a main player. And it's not just because he was a big fish in a little pond. It was because every single show he was bringing it. And it was just a special vibe, a special feel back then. And I just get that with this entire roster. Everybody is bringing it night after night, and there's no bathroom break. There's no match where you can say, oh, this one I can chill for a second. This one I can go run out and get another coffee. No match. If you do, you're going to miss something awesome. Let's talk about NXT for January 22nd, 2020. Now, they were going opposite of AEW, but AEW was on a tape delay, right? They taped their show via the Chris Jericho Cruise a night previous. So everybody that wanted to know, I even put out the AEW spoiler/review yesterday, I believe in the morning. Or no, maybe it was in the afternoon. But I already put up the AEW review. It was in spoiler form. So if you guys want to check that out, I'll have it in a box to the right or left of me at the end of this video. Just click on that. That'll take you to my thoughts on AEW. But it was a taped show. So NXT had a real chance to captivate some viewership. The bad news is, even though it was spoiled, and even though it was on a tape delay, it was a good show that AEW put together. Like, if you read it on paper, if you heard the results, if you heard the spoilers, you actually kind of wanted to tune into some of that stuff. I mean, MJF getting thrown in a pool, that's kind of funny. Like, I'm kind of in for that. You have new tag team champions in Omega and Page. You kind of have to see that. So there was some stuff that you wanted to see, and that, I think, is going to kind of hurt NXT. It's going to be interesting to see the ratings. I don't know if AEW was on such a high that I don't know if NXT was able to overcome them. We'll find out later this afternoon. I wouldn't be shocked if NXT wins, again, because NXT was on that spoiled tape delay. But I also wouldn't be shocked if AEW maintains the lead, because they put together a good show despite being spoiled. Hopefully that makes sense. But anyway, I just want to give you guys the situation that NXT found themselves in. Usually it's head-to-head, live versus live. It wasn't. AEW was taped. But they still brought a damn good show. So NXT still had to bring everything in their arsenal. I do feel that they delivered near that. And we started off with a second-round matchup in the Dusty Classic. This was the Undisputed Era. O'Reilly and Fish taking on the Grizzled Young Vets. These two teams were given nearly 20 minutes, and the Cinderella story continues for the Grizzled Young Veterans as they defeated the Undisputed Era. That's right. Get a mental note of that, a mental picture of that. The Grizzled Young Veterans defeated the Undisputed Era. I said last week after the Veterans defeated Shelley and Kushida, when I told you guys that they were now on everyone's radar, well, after beating the Era this week, they're on their way to entering the conversation, at least, of being the best tag team in NXT. That's right, I said it. Unapologetically, I say that. They beat Shelley and Kushida last week, a reunion of sorts, and we know what they can do as a tag team, and they defeated them. And then this week, they upped their ante, and they defeated the Undisputed Era, who's at the top of their game. They're all holding championships, or at least at that point they were. One of them was about to lose it later in the night. We'll get to that. But they were all holding titles. I mean, they're at the top of their game, and here you have the Grizzled Young Veterans defeating you? I say they're one victory away from being in the conversation as the best tag team in NXT. One more victory. And if they are able to do that next week, I don't see... And what's crazy about this is just a couple weeks ago, I bet you half the NXT audience didn't even know who the Grizzled Young Veterans were. Or at least not a lot about them. And here we are just a couple weeks later talking about a winning streak that is Just, it's mind-boggling. Shelly and Kushida is one thing. The Undisputed Era, and now you're in the finals of the Dusty Classic, and you're about to take on Riddle and Dunn? What a resume they are putting together in just 1 month. Just a 3-week span. Can't speak more highly of that, guys. But up next is what I was absolutely looking forward to the most. This was Io Shirai taking on Toni Storm. Now, it wasn't quite what I was hoping for, but still really good. Toni Storm is damn good, but Io Shirai, let's admit, is just on another level. So, I know it's hard for a lot of that women's roster to tap into that type of energy, and to get that type of chemistry with somebody that is as good as Io Shirai. But Toni Storm is so damn good that it doesn't matter. The match was going to be good nonetheless. The finish saw Ripley and Belair's feud leak into this Shirai Storm matchup, and the schmaz resulted in basically a no contest. Usually I'm not a fan of this type of a result, but neither of these women could afford a loss last night. Toni Storm is going in to a championship match at When Worlds Collide with Rhea Ripley. There's no way you could have Toni Storm eat a loss. Even if she wasn't going on to take on Rhea Ripley this weekend, she's still newer to the NXT audience as a whole, so you can't have her losing. And Io Shirai, I'm cool if she doesn't lose another match in the next calendar year. That's how good she is. So she should not be losing this. So they backed themselves into a corner like they usually do, right? They give us an awesome match, but when you really stop and think about it, neither can lose. So I'm okay with this. I just wish that Ripley and Belair's feud was kind of standing on its own. I don't like when they leak them together too much. I feel like it's such a stacked women's roster, and usually they have really good storylines, that you don't need them leaking into one another all the time. You have a 2-hour show. You could have had that separate. Our number 1 ended with Finn Balor versus Joaquin Wilde. This was basically a squash match. Balor hits the coup de grace, followed by the 1916, and it was lights out for Wilde. That's all I had in my notes, and that's all I need to speak about, because that's all I remember. Because that's all that happened. This was just to really pump up Finn Balor in his match for When Worlds Collide in just 2 nights. Sip of coffee, we'll do our number 2, guys. Alright, I had no more coffee left, so I had to make a whole new one, refill the amplified size back here. Down that, and now we can start off with our number 2, which was another second round matchup in the Dusty Classic. This was Imperium taking on Riddle and Dunn. Winners go on to take on the Grizzled Young Veterans in the aforementioned finals of this tournament next week. This matchup between the Imperium and Riddle and Dunn was just physical and relentless. Both teams were competing as if, again, there were no tomorrow. The final 2-minute sequence of this match was legit a jaw-dropper, and I was completely on the edge of my seat as Dunn and Riddle found enough strength deep down to defeat Imperium. Can't speak enough praise or highly about this match as I am right now. They just really, as the match went on, picked up and upped their ante tenfold as this thing went on. I mean, I literally kept going closer and closer to the edge of my seat because I'm like, this match can go either way, and they're delivering. They're bringing it. I've said it a million times, and I'll say it again. Vince McMahon has ruined tag team wrestling for me from what he has done on the main roster in the last several years. He's ruined tag wrestling for me. But this Dusty Classic has restored hope for sure. What a tag team match, but what a tag tournament this has been. And now we go on to next week's finals with the Dusty Classic ending with the Grizzled Young Veterans versus Riddle and Dunn. What a match that's going to be, man. And again, Dunn and Riddle found enough strength to somehow overtake Imperium, because there was times in this match where I was like, they're giving this to Imperium. A Grizzled Young Veterans Imperium match? But I'll take it. Every one of these teams are bringing it. Unreal. The main event was up next. This was for the North American Championship. Undisputed Era member Roddy Strong taking on challenger Keith Lee. I'm glad they made Roddy look strong in this match, but perhaps a bit too strong. We're talking about Keith Lee here, and it just seemed like he was getting tooled the entire match. It just seemed like Roddy was putting the boots to Lee this entire match. That's just how it felt. I mean, we're talking about Keith Lee, you know? I mean, this guy is a brute. He hits you with his shoulder, and you're flying 3 states across. But Roddy is owning him. It just, it didn't make a ton of sense. I mean, toward the end of this thing, you had other Undisputed Era members, all of them actually, O'Reilly, Fish, and Adam Cole, baby. They all came down for some added assistance, but they weren't needed. Roddy had this thing under control until it mattered the most. It's like the old saying goes, it doesn't matter how you win as long as you win. And when this thing was all said and done, Keith Lee defeated Roddy Strong to become the new North American champion. That was huge. This was such a good match. When it was all said and done, I can honestly say that at the beginning it was kind of slow, and I was like, oh man, they're just not clicking. And when it was all said and done, I was like, that was good shit. And this is obviously, if you followed Roddy's career, this is one of Roderick Strong's best matches in his career. I can honestly say that. If you were to put together a top 5 Roddy Strong matches, this is absolutely in your top 5. Even in loss, right? Sometimes in defeat, you bring out your best performance. And this is absolutely one of Roddy's best matches, and it's so awesome for Keith Lee because not only does he win the championship, the North American title, but he keeps ascending that ladder, and he keeps rising more and more, and his stock keeps rising. And, anyone who's like, oh, he should be going for world titles, and you have people like CM Punk saying, oh, they should be winning Royal Rumbles. Hold down there, Hoss. Keith Lee is on the rise. That's awesome. He shouldn't be winning world titles right now. Let's chill on that for a second. Let's build him up. And he shouldn't be winning Royal Rumbles. Let's chill on that. And you're talking about a huge Keith Lee fan. You guys know that if you follow the channel. Never did I say he should be winning Rumbles and heavyweight titles yet. Hold on. Or maybe after an awesome Keith Lee performance, maybe I did say he should be world title champion tomorrow. Obviously, if I did, it was a complete joke. Nobody with any sense in their dome piece would honestly say that he should be getting these accolades to that standard yet. Build him up and do it correctly. You don't want this guy feeling like he's being forced, right? You want to build them up. That's the problem with too many superstars. They want to thrust them in there right away. They're just going to be forced at some point, right? You're going to feel like, all right, that's a little quick there. I mean, we wanted to see all the aspects and all the sides, all the layers to this person before we anointed him a champion. I tell you, I don't know. Some people they get carried away. I think this is the perfect thing for Keith Lee. Start him off with that mid-level championship, and if it works, then he graduates to that heavyweight championship, right? It's the old Bret Hart path, the old Shawn Michaels path. Get those mid-card championships. Let's see what you got. It's not back in the day when Hulk Hogan's were around just winning heavyweight championships. And back then, by the way, even Macho Man Randy Savage and the Ultimate Warrior had to get the IC championship before they got the world championship. So that was even back in the day. Just saying. I wanted to let that, you know what I mean? Because I saw some of that on social media. Oh, Keith Lee shouldn't have that title. He should be the world champion. Relax. He will be. The guy just came into relevance for the broader audience for NXT and the pro wrestling world as a whole. The guy just came into relevance in the last few months. Relax. He's already a champion. All is good in the world. Roddy put on an awesome match. Keith Lee is ascending up that ladder. And when it was all said and done for the actual finish of the night, Imperium started an all-out brawl with Undisputed Era, and this thing was pretty badass to take us off the air and get us really ready for NXT and NXT UK's When Worlds Collide this Saturday night. So, again, it happened again, man. NXT puts together a solid show. You would have thought, again, that this is going to be an easy ratings win for NXT because AEW was taped, but AEW put together a really good show. So when people heard those spoilers or saw it on paper or online, they were like, oh, I still gotta watch this. So that's great for AEW. For NXT, I expect the gap that was there last week, I expect that to get much closer. It's anybody's ball game. If I had to guess, AEW might still pull this off, the ratings victory, but I expect NXT to pull even closer to AEW this week. So it'll be interesting to see what the numbers actually show. But both AEW and NXT brought it this week, and that's what I like to see, man. I don't want to give any mulligans. I don't want to see two companies, two brands that have so much potential but are not living up to it. So I love when both shows put together good shows. Is that so much to ask? If only Raw and SmackDown could do that, right? A lot of content to come this week, guys. The 50th ever podcast is this weekend, and I have something special planned on that. We're going to take it old school a little bit. You'll know what I mean come podcast time. That's going to be this weekend. The Go Home show, not just SmackDown, but the Go Home show in general for WWE's main roster is this Friday night. We're going to talk about it Saturday morning. That, of course, is SmackDown. And Sunday morning, I'm going to have the Royal Rumble preview, and I'm going to talk a little bit about NXT and NXT UK's When Worlds Collide. So it's going to be a little bit of double dipping. We're going to have a little bit of a review for NXT, and we're going to have a preview for Royal Rumble. That's all Royal Rumble Sunday. So there's a lot of content to come this weekend. So hopefully you guys absolutely just wreck it this weekend, man. Do what you got to do. And when you want to be entertained, just come to the channel. We'll talk some pro wrestling because there's a lot of great content to come. For now, you know what we got to do. I'm going to get another coffee, another refill on the amplified size. That's the amplified side, that red one you see back there, guys. I'm always filling that up right here at home. We amplify that, yeah. And when we talk caffeine, we're tripling that. Yeah, it's heavy doses, baby. It's really probably gonna kick into me in the next 10 to 20 minutes. By then, I'll be out in the world and nobody's safe at that point, right? You looking at me wrong? What you looking at, foo? The amplified, man, guys, put them up. Come on, put them. You gotta put them up, baby. I said, put them up, baby. The amplified, man. Lots of content this weekend. I'll see you then. For now, check you later.